All right. My name is Sam Jensen, and today I'm going to present my paper on democratic peace theory. So democratic peace theory is essentially the idea. It stemmed from Immanuel Kant, who is known to be the father of modern democratic peace theory. He proposed three mechanisms that foster peace among nations, and this is all presented in his essay called Perpetual Peace. The first pillar of these three is the presence of a republican constitution within the state, which is the key to democratic peace theory. Two is close trade relations between states, and three is a federation of states to overcome the condition of anarchy in international politics, such as the UN. So essentially, what I did with this project is we were given a list of all these countries and in 4 different regions, and we were told whether they were allies with either the United States, China, or Russia, and we had to use data from Freedom House to determine whether or not these nations were democratic themselves. And then we went on to or I say I went on and put all this data into this sheet. It was like it had 4 quadrants, the top left quadrant being both are democracies and they are allies, bottom left being they are not allies, but they are both democracies, top right being they're not both democracies, but they're allies, bottom right being they're not allies, they're not both democracies. And so I used this data and I plugged it into the chi-square test to figure out, I had to test my hypothesis, which was that if 2 countries are both democratic, then the likelihood of them entering into conflict is much less likely than if they weren't both democratic. So to test this hypothesis, I inserted the data into a chi-square test. So essentially how this test goes is you put in the number of instances that were observed and the number of instances that were expected. And out of all this, after I plugged all the data in, my chi-square score was 12.604 with 3 degrees of freedom with a very small p-value of 0.0055771. So since the chi-square value is relatively large and the p-value is relatively small, I think it's safe to say that a pattern exists in the real world. In a duality examination of 2 countries, if both are democratic, the trends show that they are likely to be allies, while if they are not both democratic, the opposite tends to be true. In conclusion, there is a pattern present that confirms the hypothesis that if both countries are democracies, they're more likely to be allies in the international system. The outcomes that I got were expected, and it was a very fun project to take part in.